So I live near the track, not on them, and so tonight I'm sleeping out because I really want to know what it feels like to have to listen to the train horn every night, all night, most of the night, every 30 minutes. So you can see my setup here, and train just went by. Want to see how often it comes by and how that impacts my sleep tonight, because here's one of the houses. Comes again, and it's sort of idling. There's one train idling down there. Let's go over here and check it out. Here we go. Yep, here we go. It's coming down there. Yeah, that was literally about 15 minutes. So again, like I said before, just personally trying to get a sense of what residents experience on a daily basis, all the ones living along the crossing here. So it'll be an interesting night. 7:45 p.m. on Tuesday night, March 31st. And I am out here sleeping by the tracks. I'll be kind of seeing how often the train goes by and how the horn is, and trying to sleep tonight. You can see tracks are over there. It's hard to see in the dark here. But I'll be here all night. So let's see how it goes. All right, here it comes. It is 7:54 p.m. Might be hard to see on my light here. Getting ready for bed. But every time I feel like I'm getting ready for bed, here comes the train. I don't know if you can see the lights, the red lights out there. Here it comes. I started hearing the horn about 2 minutes ago, so it was coming from somewhere. I don't know if it was idling, and now it's just come through here. So again, it is 7:54, and we'll see what time the next one comes. I'm trying to get ready for bed. Alright, it's 9 o'clock. Train's coming. Trying to get ready for bed. Go to sleep. There's a 9 o'clock one. Let's see how many people on that train, and it's hard for you all to see. It's dark. I can see out. Alright, let's see what time the next one comes. It is 9:04, 4 minutes later. Here comes the next one. Alrighty. Try to go to sleep before the next one comes? Perhaps? Maybe? Night. Alright. That's loud. It is 2 o'clock. 41, if you can see it here. Hasn't even been an hour. I was just about to fall asleep again. Alright, well, I'm gonna try again. Whew. I don't know how people inside the house that I'm staying at sleep at night. You can hear this coming all the way down from the other 2 crossings. Here it comes. And hopefully this will be the last one for, I don't know, maybe an hour or so. I'll try to go back to sleep. Oh man, where'd it go? Maybe that one stopped. Oh, nope, here it comes. You can see it coming by. And bells are down. Oh gosh, I didn't realize how much those bells and whistles are annoying. Here we go. That was 3 minutes long by the time you start hearing the noise until it actually goes by. It's 10:49. Alright, try to get some sleep. Well, that wasn't even 10 minutes. It's 10:54 and here it comes again. Holy crap. Coming from the other way. That's what happens when you live right near the split coming from the Easton station to our rural town of Berkley. It's 12:15. I sort of missed that last train. I couldn't find my camera enough, but 12:17. We'll see what time the next one comes through. Oh, I'd fallen asleep. That was good. That was too bad. 12:20. Second one coming through there. They're beeping at each other. I think this is the one people talk about. Because when the other one came by 3 minutes ago, I started hearing two horns. Is 107? I can't even sit up anymore, I'm so tired. Those bells and whistles, I didn't realize how loud they are. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it's guess I didn't start at 1:30. I've got this train coming. Okay, it is 4:42 in the morning, and here we go. A little later than I expected. I had expected a 4:41, 4:30. did get probably a good 2 hours after the 2 o'clock train or so. It's still really loud. There's definitely no sleeping through that. Alright, it is 5:14 in the morning. Here comes the train. You can hear it. Two crossings down. It's such a rural, open community that the sound travels. It's just the way that it is. I can understand why families are so frustrated and having a hard time sleeping. It's not the noise of the train, it's the noise of the horns that goes through the crossings, because the crossings are so close together. There wasn't a single time where we were told or we expected or heard that there would be trains after 11 p.m. or, up to 64 trains a day. And again, it's not the trains. We go from listening to a, one horn a day at 12:30 or so for the freight train to 64 horns a day. That's a change in people's lives. And my heart breaks for many families here, especially along the rails. This is the train from my house. What you can hear, I'm about 600 yards away. Not 50 feet away, like 600 yards away. And so I'm not even on the tracks like many of the families, and I think that's important to note. 6:35 in the morning. This is probably the 5th train that's come through since 5:30. It's about 6:50 or so in the morning. I hear probably the 7th train coming. Now down through 79 in the crossing since about 4:45 this morning, 7th or 8th train. I spent the night here in the tent. Wanted to really get a sense of what it was like for people living, in these homes over here. Right by the tracks, and how it impacts, especially nighttime sleeping after, 9-10 o'clock, and how many trains are coming by. Oh, here we go, coming the other way. One right after the other. They do get closer together in the morning and throughout the day, but our goal is to hope the town will approve a quiet zone that will help these families. But the other issue is funding. We need to identify almost $1.5 million to implement the safety requirements, which we feel really should have been put in place in many of these smaller communities during the construction of the rail. Proactive thinking about what should have been done instead of leaving it up to these small communities to mitigate the noise for families here in town. Other solutions that we're looking at is just to minimize the trains after, stop the trains after 11 p.m. I think I've said this before. I recognize and appreciate that people need to get home from Boston, right? Or into Boston. But after 11 p.m. at night, especially if it's not on a Friday or Saturday night, for the handful of folks that are riding the train, what about all of the families whose lives are being impacted, right? There's always these unintended consequences to policy choices, and sometimes I think people forget about those that either don't have a seat at the table and they don't see how it's going to impact them in their lives. Something that I think would be important to pull is the data on train ridership. I've been following that, and I personally think it's challenging to pull because we know that they're not ticketing. I've read reports from the MBTA that Keolis is not ticketing all the passengers. Personally, I drive into Boston or take the train into Boston a lot over the last few years, and I would say less than half the time they actually checked my ticket. And that's an important thing, because if we can't get real data on who's riding the train at what time or what day, how can we make informed decisions about what trains are actually needed? And I think that's a really important point to make, and something that the MBTA should be focused on.
So if the train horns go off in our house, it's super disruptive because we literally can't hear each other talk. So we have to pause everything. We're on the phone, we got to hit pause. We're on the phone with Xfinity, we got to hit pause. If we're talking in person, inside or outside the yard, especially in the summer, even in the summer, if the windows are open, and we're in the house, we have to hit pause because it's just deafening.
It has changed our way of life considerably. Ultimately, we can't open the doors in the good weather like we like to because the train horn is so loud and obnoxious, along with the screeching brakes that come along with it. And our quality of life at night is really terrible because the train runs through so many times and the train horn is so loud that we can't sleep. You're lucky if you can get 3.5 hours sleep.
It causes kind of a commotion because it not only makes the noise, it shakes our house. If we're in the middle of a conversation, we can't hear each other. We have to stop what we're doing. I run a private practice out of my house, and I have to stop mid-client, which is really frustrating for my clients and for myself. If they're telling me some deep personal information, we're making a big impact, and then all of a sudden it's like, hold on, the train's going by. And that could happen quite a few times in a row, right during a session. So it's really disruptive to my practice, to my patients, to my children at home when they're trying to sleep, if it wakes them up. It's hard to have company over sometimes because, it's still fun, but mid-conversations, we'll have to stop and pause and wait for the trains to go by. It's really disruptive.
Well, it's nothing pleasant. You can hear right now another one's coming by. The decibel levels are exceeding what I believe are normal limits, and it does shake our house, and it does keep us up all hours of the night. And unfortunately, we're not getting much sleep. And I know a lot of people will say certain things such as, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. And this doesn't happen, this happens consistently every 45 minutes. Now, granted, during the day, it's fine. We as residents in the area, we knew this was going to happen. We knew it was going to be 6 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, and we were fine with that. We love this town. We love our children going to the schools here. But the issue was, we were lied to. We were lied to that this was gonna run a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They said, no, that's not gonna happen. It was gonna happen maybe 25 to 30 times a day, and it wasn't gonna happen overnight. And right now, they are estimating around 50 times per day, and they are going overnight. We're talking every 45 minutes that what you just heard goes by at 12, 12:45, 1:30, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. We can't get sleep.
It's extremely disturbing. If you're in the middle of having a conversation or, trying to be on a meeting or anything when you're working remotely, it's very disruptive. It's very loud. Depending on how fast the train is going by, your house will shake. You can literally see things moving on the shelves. Definitely not the peace and quiet that Berkley once had.
Every single time it goes off when I'm home, morning, noon, and night. I hear it when it goes off the last run of the night, and I hear it at 4:44 when it comes through first thing in the morning.
During the day, I'm at work, so I'm not gonna lie. During the summers, I hear them all the time. I'm home during the summer, so we'll be swimming in the pool. We'll be playing games in the background multiple times during the hour. I would say probably 10 to 12 times at least. And where my house is, we're kind of in the middle of two train intersections. So we'll hear it from one end, and then we'll hear it again, and then it comes back and goes back again. So I feel like we get a double fold almost. In the evening, probably the same thing, probably like 10 to 12 times in the evening. And I hear it, I get up at 4 a.m. I start hearing them by 4:30. It's pretty much the entire time I'm awake, all day, every day.
On some days when we actually mark it down on a piece of paper, the most that we've been up to is 86 times a day. On average, I would say it's between 45 and 60 times a day that it goes by, which, as you can imagine, is just completely overwhelming. It usually starts, you could set your alarm, about 4:40 in the morning it starts, and it goes until about 1:25 to 1:45 a.m. Occasionally, if you have weather conditions or anything like that, it will actually delay, and they will be doing the trains going across at 2:25 in the morning, 3:15, especially with all the snow that we had just over the last few weeks. We've had trains going pretty much 24/7.
So one moment is I was sitting in my garage. I'm a sixth grade science teacher, but I do a lot of woodworking and laser engraving, mostly for fun. And I was sitting in my garage, and the train was going by, and I was just watching all the wires in my garage just bounce to the vibration. And even this morning, I was in the shower looking down at our shower tiles, and new cracks are starting to form. And almost within like 1 week, all the molding that had been, caulked and sealed, nice paint job, all the molding in the entire house separated from the wall. So, like I paint houses on the side too, and like now I gotta go in, I gotta caulk and repaint everything because it all separated, it's all cracked away just from like the sound just ripping through the house, the vibration. Like you can just stand there and feel it. Like it's, so I teach my students sound is a vibration. Like it's not doing nothing. Like it's zipping through the house, and it's, pulling things apart and stuff.
From the very first time the train actually blew the horn. Hasn't been the same since. It's been a very different way of life for everybody here in Myrick's.
I would say I was probably in the middle of a really important phone call with a family member who was going through a really challenging time. And as I'm crying, she's crying, things are going on, the horn comes, and I knew she was in the middle of telling me something really important, and I had to say, I know you're really upset and that was really hard for you to tell me, but I need you to say it again because the trains just went by and I couldn't hear anything that you were saying, which really gets in the middle of like those personal moments that you try to have with people.
I don't necessarily think there's one exact moment. I know initially was probably when they first started up and they were running the tests and running the scenarios through this rail line. That's when it was actually over about 80 trains a day. And I know it was a test. One of the things I do see a lot is because my window's right across the street and I peer out, is that these trains are mostly empty that they're running. There's no one in them. You might have one straight passenger at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. But this is, I think, what is most upsetting. Why have these trains run? Can they adjust the schedules for, the people of the town?
So we knew the train was coming. We were originally told it was going to come by 13 times a day. That multiplied to 26. And then it was increasing, as the times were getting closer to it going live. The first day was absolutely culture shock. As I said, we sat there and marked it down and wrote down every single time that it went. And I work from home a couple of days a week. And I was actually like, there is no way that I am going to be able to manage with this. I will be on meetings with noise canceling earbuds in, and people in my background that are over a computer will literally say, we can still hear the trains going by. Like, how can you deal with that day in and day night? You do get a little bit used to it at certain times of the day because you do tend to zone it out, but it's most disruptive when you're trying to sleep. One thing that I will tell you is, so I have an 18-year-old, and probably the second or third night that the trains were actually running live, when I woke him up in the morning, he was like, we have to sell our house and move. I'm not going to be able to live like this. And that was extremely concerning because as a senior in high school who still needs to be able to concentrate in school, it's just, it's not something that you can deal with on a daily basis.
Well, ultimately, along with everyone else who lives down here who's already previously stated that they can't sleep at night, the kids are affected. We have grandkids staying with us temporarily, they're affected. My wife can't sleep at night. She's now a night owl like I am because there's just no way we can sleep through it. As you can hear as it comes through right now. And ironically, it's the rail line. It's not even the MBTA line. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely disrupted our whole quality of life because, like I said, our house will shake when the trains go by. So we're not even just listening to it, we're feeling it. So the kids were like, Mom, is there like an earthquake? And now it's just a joke, right? Because we feel it, we see it, we'll be at dinner, things will start shaking a little bit. And we've kind of tried to start joking around about it, but in reality, it's not funny. It took a while to like retrain my daughter to sleep through that sound. Now she uses a noise machine. We have to have a fan going. We have to have all this like extra noise going on to adjust to take away from that train noise. I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes. I used to sleep soundly through the night. So there are times where the train will wake me up, which is frustrating because I used to be a great sleeper and now I hear the trains all the time.
It's awful. Sleep quality is not good. You know, there's a lot of people on this road that work third-hour shifts, and you know, luckily I work first shift, but we don't get adequate sleep with the horns going off every hour and the bells going off every hour. It's not something you get used to, as a lot of people will say. You don't get used to it. You still wake up, you still come out of REM sleep, and it hurts your day-to-day progress with your job, with family, and whatever's going on in life. And you can feel it. It's something that it builds over time. Mentally, you can feel there's a certain drain to your body. And, you know, I look forward to not sleeping in my own bed some nights because I won't have to listen to the train coming by, to be honest. And that's pretty sad when we live in a nice town like this.
You don't sleep. You don't sleep at all throughout the night. You try to plan it that you go to bed. Like I'm actually a nurse, and you have 3 houses right in a row. These 3 houses are all nurses. And we've all talked about the fact that you have to go to bed at a certain hour to be able to get like a solid hour and a half sleep. And then you'll wake up again, and then you'll get to sleep again for another hour. And then again, you know, it's starting again about 4:40 in the morning. Quality of life, it sucks. Like there is no easy way to put it. You are constantly rolling over because you're hearing the train noise. You're saying, okay, it just went by. That means it's going to go again in just a few minutes. I couldn't even tell you the last time that I had a full night's sleep. And it affects everybody in our house with their mood and just being, you know, affected by a lack of sleep. The concentration's not there. Your whole mood and personality changes.
Well, if you don't live in an area with a train coming through your backyard morning, noon, and night 64 times a day, you can't possibly understand or fathom what the people in this area are going through, because unless you live it, you can't understand it.
Yes, you got to get used to it, but try getting used to having to navigate your conversations around a train horn. Try getting used to navigating your private practice around a train horn, because it's not a good look for me, right? Luckily, I have patients that are understanding, but sometimes I don't, and they might not want to see me again, and that's a loss of income to me because of the train horns that go by all the time. So until you're living there and you're shaking and you're seeing your chandeliers go a little bit, or your windows are cracking, or your dogs are barking extra because the train is so loud, you really don't understand what it's like. And it's hard to keep those connections alive with people. People don't want to talk on the phone with me if they're like, oh, it's so frustrating, I can't get a conversation, and I'm just going to text you, I'll try to talk to you later. It's disruptive to every aspect of my life.
We've owned our house 22 years, 23 years maybe. We were very used to the freight train going by a couple times a day, even when it went by more than that. It would be something that you just got used to. The kids loved it. They ran to the windows and looked at the trains. Since this has happened, I think when you read articles and you watch the news, it's people say, well, you should have moved. You know, you knew it was coming. You should have gotten out of there. We did know it was coming, but we knew it was coming with 13 trains a day. Okay, maybe 26 times a day. It was supposed to be in phases. It was supposed to be Monday through Friday from certain hours, and then go to phase 2 and expand, and then go to phase 3. When they went into this, they went full. They're 7 days a week. They do run less trains on the weekend, which is definitely more manageable, but people don't understand this. We did not sign up for this. We were told one thing, and my house is, I don't even know, 300 feet from here maybe. I didn't get mitigation money. I don't have soundproof windows. I don't have anything because there is a street in between. And I think that people just don't understand is it's not just the train going by. It's the horns, it's the whistles, it's the bells. You'll still see it later. They park down here and they idle for 25 to 45 minutes because you can only have so many trains going by at one time. And so you hear the humming of it, and you can hear that when you're inside the house with the TV going, with the air conditioner going in the summer. It's just extremely disruptive, and people don't quite understand that.
I'm all about train safety, like 100%. So I understand the need for it. I do think there's higher traffic hours than others. So, and I understand different people work different hours, so other people are disrupted at different points during the day. However, if we could maybe limit it a little bit, I think one horn could be sufficient as opposed to honking the same horn like 5 to 6 times, like repeatedly or on hold. Sometimes it goes on and I'm like, wow, that was like a 10-second horn straight in a row. And then I have to hear it again and again. So especially in the evening hours, like, and I try to work in the evening, right? So 9, 10 p.m., I don't feel like it should be that disruptive to my life. I feel like we could at least take it down a little bit. I don't think we need all the flashing lights and all the horns all of the time.
Personally, what I would like to see changed, I don't know, I don't speak for everybody, but personally, we knew that at some point in time, the rails, they were going to come through. And we accepted that. We brought our kids up in this town. We knew the rail line was here and a commuter rail was going to be put in. What I would like to see changed is basically what they initially told us what was going to happen. The hours of operation, the overnight trains. If they would just run simply a 6 a.m. to an 11 p.m. shift like they told us originally and cut the noise out from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m., I think locally here, we would be able to get some rest, get some sleep. I know it's a lot of money to, install a quiet zone, but I think it's necessary for the people locally. And what makes me upset, and I think a lot of the people in the area, is that we were blatantly lied to about it just so we could get this rail moving along. So what I'm asking, and what some of the local town people are asking, is to have a quiet zone set up from the hours of 11 p.m. myself, this is just for me, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I can live with that. I don't expect the trains to go away. They're not going away. I don't expect that. But if we could have some quiet time, quiet zones from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., I would consider it a win.
The train's not going anywhere. I mean, we can't just stop it. That's not what our goal has been from the beginning. What we've asked for is to either reduce the number of train rides that are going through, particularly on the late night hours, because when you sit in my living room, you can see it is a very low ridership. They're not on that train. In an ideal situation, we would like for a quiet zone for potentially like the hours from 11 p.m. to like 6 in the morning. Allow people to have the quality of time to be able to sleep and be uninterrupted. During the day, you can manage. Kids are in school, people are working. It's more so when you're having that uninterrupted sleep in the middle of the night, you can only do that so many times before it affects you.
The most disruptive was the nighttime ones. The 1 o'clock, the 1:15, basically after the kids went to bed or in the morning. Those are the most disruptive ones.
It was hellacious, actually. At 1:15 in the morning, we had one train come by, another train come by 2 minutes later. The realization that this was not going to ever stop. This was, after 30 years in my house, the new reality that 7 days a week, this is what we'd be facing. And same thing in the morning when the train would be going the other way at 4:45 a.m. So there was a narrow 3-hour window where we could sleep uninterrupted. But there was really a sense of overwhelm that this wasn't ever going to go away.
Definitely better sleep at night, definitely better quality of life. I'm personally a very sound sleeper. My wife will tell you I sleep through the babies crying, the alarm going off. But that first week of those trains going off, it was a surprise to be woken up by that. Much better sleep now.
Now we hear the train horn, and we appreciate how little of the horn we actually hear. We still feel the vibrations coming through. We still hear some of the horns. It's Berkley. The tracks are wide open. The sound does carry substantially. Nowhere as permeating as it was, but there's a sense of relief, and it's a welcome sense of release, actually. I feel for them because I know exactly what it was like living where we live, having the horn come out of the East Taunton station a quarter mile before it hits the crossing. It just cut right through the woods, and it's a shrilling sound that just cuts through everything like it's designed to do. It's a safety horn. But it's not just my problem that went away. It's a major problem for a lot of people in this town, Freetown, and all throughout the tracks.
I definitely feel very fortunate that our situation was taken care of, but it definitely bothers me that the rest of the town, dozens, if not hundreds of families around here still being affected by that.
I would love a quiet zone. I think that would be amazing. That would change my life in a whole different way.
I would love a quiet zone. I think it's important for people to know that we're not anti-train. We're not trying to be blocking the tracks and preventing this from happening. Quiet zone ideally would have been built at the time of design of this project. The people who run railroads know that this is a realistic possibility, that this impact was going to happen. And ideally, it's just much better to take care of that initially than to shift the burden back onto us, our expense, our liability, all that things that we knew the nuisance was going to happen. It would have been nice if somebody would have proactively addressed that on the other side. But a quiet zone is something that we should have, especially if trains are running after midnight and before 6 a.m. It's unrealistic to expect the citizens to have to deal with all of this stuff on their own. The quality of life, property values, but just to get some sleep. If you're getting very little sleep, it's a health issue, and you shouldn't have to deal with that.
I think the establishment of a quiet zone would be huge for the town. Obviously, the town does not have the funds for that, so I think the state really needs to step up. And they've made this big investment in the South Coast Rail, but they're kind of ignoring the needs of these little towns that are not even really being serviced by the rail line. I think it's important for people that are not being directly affected by this to understand how it is affecting those who live close to the tracks. My house is about 200 feet rather from the tracks, and I have neighbors that are even closer than that who are being affected. And we were offered, noise mitigation from the MBTA that, really didn't do much. I had new siding put in my house last year, and I had extra insulation put in. That didn't make a difference either.
Well, it's my town. It's just because it doesn't affect me as much as it did doesn't mean the problem went away. It just shifted to somebody else's burden. And I don't think anybody should have to live in that situation where between 1:15 in the morning and 4:45 a.m. is the only time you're going to get some restful sleep. And it's a burden that people shouldn't have to deal with.
It doesn't affect just me. I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for everybody involved in this area and every other city and town that's affected the same way. If you live along the tracks, you're paying a price on your physical health, your well-being, your lack of sleep. And it's a real disturbance. All we want is a little compromise and a little bit of change. We want them ultimately to tone it down a little bit like they said it was going to be in the first place.
Again, just like I'm not anti-train. I love the train. I think it's great. We don't need as many cars and everything around. So I do see the value. I have family members that live in Boston that can now hop the train, and I can pick them up in Taunton. So I love the convenience of the train. I don't love the inconvenience of this disruption to my life just based on the noise alone. It's really like the noise that gets in my way. So if we can just take it down a little bit, we're not this great giant community with constant traffic all the time. We're just not. So I don't think we need this oversensation of the trains every single time the train goes by.
No, I think like I said, as a neighborhood here, and a lot of the people, we've been fairly patient, waiting for answers. I know we've had meetings, and the meetings really haven't gotten us anywhere. I feel like we've been kind of swept aside a little bit, and if they deal with it long enough, it'll go away. And I can tell you, it's not going away. We're here to fight back a little bit and see what we can do to go forward and kind of make some kind of a mutual agreement. If we did cut it back, it'll make us happier in the community, and it'll probably save the rail money so they're not running overnight. So I think it's a win-win if you could just resolve some of the late hours. I think it's a win-win for the state and for the people of the area.
I feel like there's been a lot of coverage with the train situation in both Freetown, Lakeville, Middleborough, you know, Taunton area as well. We're trying to come together as a community. We're trying to say this isn't just affecting one person or one town. We are in the town of Berkley. There's no money to essentially make all these changes that we want. However, if South Coast Rail and the MBTA and, you know, people can work together and be able to look at the impact that they've had in people's lives, I think that there is opportunity there. And again, we're not asking for it to go away. We're just asking for some type of accommodations to benefit the people that are still here.
You know, the plan was for 1,600 new riders. The goal of the MBTA, $1.1 billion spent to generate 1,600 new riders. If you look at the number of people impacted, the number of trains, the number of horns over the course of a day, that number of the impacted people is substantially higher than the 1,600 people the system was designed to serve. They spent $1.1 billion building the system. Why couldn't they spend some of that to protect the other people who are impacted negatively by the train? And then hopefully quiet zone will come into effect so people can get some sleep, get the quality of their life back. Again, it's not like we don't want the train. We don't think that's realistic. It's going to happen. But be a good neighbor, work with us, work with the communities you serve, and we can find the common ground to get along well together.
I'll say that I'm a big advocate for public transportation. I don't think of this as a bad thing for the area, but I think that some consideration needed to be given to the people who are actually being directly affected by this.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Vincent. I am a resident in Berkley, Massachusetts. I'm also a selectman in town. It's a year now. It's the year anniversary of the South Coast Rail extension through Berkley. You can look over here. I'm at the intersection of N79 and Myrick's, where actually the train splits. So we have the East Taunton tracks down that way, and it comes through, and we have a split right here where one of the trains goes to Fall River, the other to New Bedford. And so about a year ago, we've been looking forward to this project it started in the 90s, going on 30 years now. Very supportive of the train and the work the state and the MBTA are trying to do. Up until the train started back in March, we were expecting 26 trains a day, starting at 5:30 in the morning and going through 11 p.m. at night. We were shocked and surprised in Berkley here when the train started in March of 2025, and they were running 64 trains a day, and they were running from 4:30 a.m. until 1:30 a.m. Very quickly, residents reached out to us on the Board of Selectmen and asked us to put together a community conversation to talk about what was going on and what we could do. We worked collaboratively with the MBTA to try to support the residents and try to find solutions to mitigate the horn noise. So the challenge is not necessarily the train. A lot of people talk about, getting used to the train noise. Many of us have gotten used to the train noise here. The bigger challenge is the horns. You hear a horn blaring 15 seconds before it comes through the tracks and then after the tracks, and come in the opposite way as well, because we have the split right here. So every half hour, all day, every day, we have residents along the tracks, hundreds of families who are having trouble sleeping, whose mental health, physical well-being, and their families have been suffering. We're at a standstill now with what to do. We're looking to implement a quiet zone, which is going to cost the town over $1.5 million. That's something that we cannot afford. So we're looking to shed light and bring attention to the families that are still suffering and struggling from from this project. And while again, we're all in support of the trains, we want to work collaboratively with the state to find solutions to the unintended consequences of this policy and how it's negatively impacted many, many of our residents. As you can hear, usually it starts with the bells and whistles, which you can hear coming down right now. And this is when the gates come down. And then you can hear the horn blaring right before the tracks, and then the train coming through. Here we go. And again, sometimes it's not even every 30 minutes. Sometimes it's every 15 or 20 minutes because again, we have the break there in the track. And the reality is we want to support people who are trying to get to New Bedford and Fall River. But often when you look on these trains, they're not full. Why are we running trains after 11 p.m. at night not full? And I understand, someone said once, like any rider is an important rider, and we're here to serve the public good in the community. And I understand that. But the biggest challenge is we're forgetting about the hundreds of families that live near the crossing. So while we're serving those few residents in the state to get to Fall River and New Bedford, we're forgetting about those that are suffering on the tracks, and something needs to be done about that.